Hey guys, welcome back to the Danger Planet. This is Doug. I'm here with Sam, Haku, Pope, and Brandon. And today we're going to talk about the team's experience out at Nova Open and the trials and tribulations of both the Masters Invitational as well as the Open Grand Tournament that was held. Today's episode is going to be a walkthrough of all the various team members' experiences at the Nova Open and the Masters Invitational at Nova. So we're going to start with the man of the hour. Congratulations, Mr. Haku. So you ended up winning the Masters Invitational, which was a 5-round invitational across 2 days. First day was 3 rounds, second day was 2 rounds, and you declared Arcanist. So why don't we wind the clock back a little bit, because I saw you practicing a crap load for this event every time you logged on to Vassal and were witnessing me into other people. So why don't you take a little bit of time to talk to us about the core crews that you were planning on bringing into the event, what you did to prepare for the event as well. I think that'll set the stage really well, and then we'll kind of just go through your rounds if that works for you.
Yeah, originally, actually, I was going to be playing Explorers for this event because the way this event works was it's a bands format with double masters. So I was going to play Nexus Kids and swap between McCabe and Ivan as a second master based off who banned it. Because I thought that was one of the stronger lists you can run at the time. And then Witness came out, and I've got into a lot of arguments since their release about how good they were. And I thought Witness were kind of cracked, and they also just seemed a lot of fun to play with. So I started playing them on Vassal for the Vassal tournament that was happening right before Nova, and technically during Nova. But I thankfully got my game in before. And I was also playing with friends just online on Vassal as well, to test out different builds and different concepts on like what to play. For example, if Augmented never got banned, would I want to hire a second master in Witness and what that would look like? So I ended up playing a lot of games of that, and overall, I just felt like Witness were a little too strong not to play. Also, it helps that they're just like very much my play style, especially Damien 2, the Unbound title. Really speaks to who I am with like the luring people out or just go in there and go blasting if they decide to clump. And it really puts positioning on your opponent. And it feels really good. It's just a satisfying crew to play. I think we'll get into this more as we talk, but obviously because of this event and because of how well I was doing with Witness, even in Vassal, people were calling out like how good it is, how unreasonably good it might be. I think there is actually a decent amount of counterplay to Witness, and we'll probably get into that a little bit more as we talk about. I think a big factor definitely is not as many people practice Witness as I did or practice against them, so they weren't always quite sure what was coming, and that definitely helped me out.
Yeah, we don't actually know how to counterplay this problem because this keyword has only existed for, like whatever, 2 weeks, 3 weeks at the time, I think, right?
Yeah.
When we went to it. So then you got a ton of practice in. I mean, I watched probably 3 of your games on your channel because I thought it was interesting because I'm trying to learn how to play Witness as well. So I'm just going to copycat your shit, basically. And then I know you brought Augmented as well. And then just like a handful of versatile models, effectively. You brought some Performer versatiles as sub-ins, right? Because I know you bought the Corfi Duet. And what was it? 2 Soulstone Miners and a couple of other versatiles you brought into the pool.
Yeah, realistically, it was just Duet / the Corfi / Mannequin, because that's all one list of models as they die.
Yeah.
And Hoffman himself plus his keyword. Miners, I'm not a fan of miners anymore. I actually think almost no Arcanist list really runs miners anymore.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I still like the models. I still have them in the collection ready to go if a certain pool or opponent or whatever rears their ugly head. But yeah, I think in general, you're probably right. All right, so round 1, walk us through what did you declare for faction? What did you declare for keyword? Who were you up against? Was he a good guy? Was he a bad guy? Was he the worst?
Yeah, who were you up against, Longton?
I was up against you, Brandon.
Oh.
I learned from watching you.
Yeah. So what? So walk us through the declaration phase, the crew building phase, and then give us the spark notes of the game.
All right, so I declared Arcanist as we were talking about. All right, for round 1, we had standard deployment, curse objects, secret meetup, hidden martyrs, in your face, leave your mark, and breakthrough. I was against a Neverborn player, but pretty much as long as I'm not against an Arcanist player, I was going to be declaring witness, so that is what I did. I was playing against our good friend Brandon here on the podcast, and he ended up taking Pandora. So against Pandora, I'm going to be playing Witness 2 because I want condition removal, but also just because I think Witness 2 is the generically better one. Although we'll have some competition with that later. The default strategy is just go in there, remove Pandora, remove the other models around her, and just win the game. Candy being a big, easy target for the crew.
And because you can pull her in from pretty far away, and she already has to be close to you to do stuff, so it's kind of hard to position that perfectly.
More than that, I'm actually just looking for like 8 to 10 health henchmen that people think are normally pretty safe, and then if I lure them out, get the focus, and get a focus either from my own action or from Loth being nearby to get a plus the damage flip, I can statistically just flat out remove those models from the game while maybe even blasting on people damage. And so that caught a decent amount of people off guard this tournament. And it's also just, it's hard to position around. So unfortunately, that is what happened to Brandon. He went forward. He fasted his models, particularly Candy. We just keep passing activations back and forth with nothing really significant going on. He ends up riding Candy forward with Dead Rider just so that he can go in and do the super annoying Candy thing where she ends up in the middle of your crew. And since he had the last activation, he thought he could do that kind of safely. But because he rode it forward, I was able to walk Damien while staying within 3 inches of Loth, who has his aura up, bonus action Candy in, and then just instantly kill a fast Candy while splashing some damage onto a rider that didn't really matter. But ultimately, it was just a kill Candy, and then slowly I just started picking apart the rest of the crew. The game actually got pretty interesting from there on out. He did the whole make undead. I believe random 1 initiative turn 2. He made Rider have his hazardous aura up there and also staying like decently far back, which I think he correctly assumed he did have to run backwards with Rider in order to just keep it protected, but almost more importantly, just to keep that hazardous aura up. So I'm worried about all the Sorrows moving me, the Pandora herself moving me whenever I get stunned, and just nickel and dime me for a bunch of damage. And that worked out pretty well for him. But it just, with Candy dead, it was just a matter of I have more soul stones of models than you do pretty much. And I was able to ultimately punch through it by around like turn 3. And then we did almost go to time. So it ended up being a pretty close game. I think it was 4-3.
Yeah, it was a 1-point diff because I remember coming over and looking, and it was a 4-3. So that's where that game ended at 4-3, and you basically did the Scorpion get over here thing via Loeth, cheated in some plus flips, and schmongled usually a very tough to kill henchman, sounds like. And that was kind of most of the game.
I think I got 1 point assassinate because I just outright killed Pandora when I could. And then 1 point leave your mark just because we didn't go to round and I could only get 1 point from it because I didn't have enough ski markers. And then 2 points on covert. And then,
cool.
If we went to time, probably scored a couple more points, but it didn't really. I wasn't playing for diff. I was playing to win rounds, and that's a big thing I held to throughout this tournament.
Yeah, that's an interesting perspective that I really want to unpack at the end of this. But let's get through. I guess we got 4 more rounds to get through. So give me the high notes of round 2. Who you declared, what you declared into from a faction standpoint, who your opponent was, the scheme and set, and then any highlights of the game, I guess.
Round 2 was another Neverborn versus Arcanist matchup where I declared witness and took Damien 2 into Dreamer 2. We had Corner Deployment, Carve a Path, Catch and Release, Public Demonstration, Hidden Martyr, Set the Trap, Sabotage. Just for rulings clarification, for Carve a Path and for the interacting from range, we did use arcing through the witness models because that's pretty much just how the rules are currently written. And that allowed for me to push the markers forward and then push them forward again because I just pushed them under loath with the gamer and then pushed it forward again. The big thing I was aiming for in this game was to just straight kill Dreamer, because if Damien 2 gets on the Dreamer, he can kill him pretty easily. And that is actually exactly what happened. I had last activation. So what he did was he just kept going, doing his Dreamer thing, got his hand, got buried. And then he went forward with Huggy and was setting up a Dreamer pop out turn. And I accidentally intentionally put a couple gamers close to where Huggy was just to try to incentivize him to pop out with Dreamer and kill the gamers and maybe get some damage on Loath. And that's exactly what happened. He popped out in a force, he killed the gamer, and then I went with Unbound. I stoned, used the plus flip from Loath to get around Concealing and Serene Continents, pulled in Dreamer, and one-shot him. Killed the Master turn 1. And that was pretty much the game from there.
Yeah, poor little dude. So then I guess what was the net score round 2, and what were your picks for secondaries?
My picks for what schemes did I end up actually doing on this? I believe I just did Hidden Martyrs and Sabotage. And so I got both my points on Sabotage. I ended up only getting 1 point on Hidden. And because I just killed everything, and then I think I full scored everything else. So I believe the final score ended up being something like 7-3.
Okay.
Yep.
So you're
7-3.
okay. So you're 2-0 going into round 3. Same as before. Walk us through the round there.
So yeah, as you said, Darkest Timeline. This matchup we pretty much knew was coming. It was me versus the Pope. And the funniest part about this matchup, it was Arcs versus 10 Thunders. He declared Yoko. I declared Witness after waffling between Hoff a little bit because I'm not the biggest fan of Witness versus Yoko. But me and the Pope specifically designed a list to try to beat Yoko 2 using Damien 1 with the Corfi Duet in order to gain essentially an extra pass token on Yoko, because Yoko really needs to be up on pass tokens to do kind of her bullshit shenanigans of activating 3 models in a row. So winning initiative, getting the pass token, it basically is now like Yoko just has last activation, which is a huge hamperance of her ability to just blow you off the table. So it kind of went just like we planned it to go. And it was flank deployment, guard the stash, secret meetup, vendetta, in your face, breakthrough, spread them out. And I got activation control, got Corfi duets, and then pretty much whenever Damien went, I would just go and one-shot a model and just remove Charm Warder, remove Bill, and then we just kept on removing models. In this game, I believe I took In Your Face and Vendetta, and we both took Vendetta. Neither of us scored any points on Vendetta, and
What was the total end score? Do you
total
remember?
end score, I think, was like 5-4 or 4-3.
Okay.
It was
So
another close game that was only like one. I might have been 2-point diff, but it was a really close game.
So you face the Dark Link mirror match, the Darkest Timeline, and then it's you're now, I guess, 3-0, right? Going into round 4.
Yeah, I got the Pope to build the list so I can beat him with the list he built. Very classic stuff.
The Pope beat was beaten by his own list. I'm sure he'll
Yeah.
have some words about that when I talk to him. So all right, cool. So we're going into what next round. Walk us through what the scenario was.
Yeah, so round 4, day 2, going into it, I knew it would be me versus Cody, who was the other Arcanist Damien player. He's the one who shills Damien 1 the most as the better master. So I knew I was more than likely going to be playing Damien 1, and I specifically brought Augmented to beat Damien. I feel it's the counter Arcanist have to Damien, and so I went for it. We built the list. we're in wedge deployment, covert operations, assassinate, set the trap, leave your mark, breakthrough, load them up. The lists happen exactly like I thought they would. We get Damien 1 standard list, and we get Hoffman augmented, and lasers go burr. And that's pretty much what happened. The most memorable and meaningful thing that happened was round 1. He bonus action Peacekeeper, so he can ignore the armor and shielded. And I would be relying on Soulstones, because obviously I put Soulstone Cash on him in order to keep him alive. That being said, he just Black Jokered the bonus flip, and so did nothing to Peacekeeper, which allowed me to play a lot more aggressive with Peacekeeper than I should have been allowed to, because I now know he has his armor and can go forward. So that's pretty much with that happening, it pretty much solidified the game for me. I don't want to be like, oh man, I amazingly outplayed him strategic and all those things. No, he Black Jokered a bonus flip, and then what would have been a very interesting game started just slowly turning one-sided for me as I moved forward my meat grinders and ground up Witness into fine paste.
Yeah, sometimes Peacekeeper go burr and opponent go bleh.
Yeah, Peacekeeper
You know what I mean?
on the left flank. I had Howard on the right flank, just killing every model, and yeah, there's just nothing you could really do about it at that point, because I got to keep my soul stones round 1, and from then on, just don't prevent any of the damage, and nothing really died unless I stopped paying attention to it.
Yeah, and Cody's a good player, and his crew looked great. His Damien had like a handmade like little mini chessboard, which looked super cool. That was probably the coolest Damien conversion I've ever seen in person. It's really sweet. So I guess now you're XO, right? What was the net score at the end of that round? Do you remember?
The net score for this one was another close one. I think I might have taken it by 2 points though. I don't actually remember. 5-3 maybe.
Diff, something
another
like that.
4-3. As I was saying, I really played to win the round. I wasn't caring about diff at all.
Yeah, that makes total sense. And again, I think I'm gonna have some interesting, probing, deep personal questions about that on the outro of this. But for now, so you're into round 5. You're XO. Life is feeling good, and walk us through what you ran into in terms of opponent and pool and stuff like that.
Round 5, I'm 4-0. The only person in the tournament who's 4-0. So now I don't even have to play to win. I can play to tie, and I will win the tournament. I'm against Andre from Texas, better known as Carnage online.
Andre Demings is one of my favorite players to talk to, because he's like a max specialist, and he was really nice. And like I sat down with him for like 10 minutes after your game, and he gave me he took me to school on Max 1. So I'm really looking forward to implementing some of the stuff that we talked about. He's a good dude. I like Andre.
Big fan of Andre. Well, some of the nicest people you'll meet is the Texas people. They all came out here in force. They had a great time, and they're really cool people. The round we were playing was standard deployment, guard the stash, catch and release, secret meetup, assassinate, hidden martyr, spread them out. As you pointed out, I already knew Andre was a big Max 1 shill, and the problem with that is Andre is also known for being a player that only plays one crew, learns it really well, and keeps playing that crew. And he got to experience the problem of doing that, I think, this round, which is that Maxine's hard countered by Damien. It can't.
What do
really
you mean? Yeah, what do you mean by that? Unpack that statement for us for a second.
So Maxine ends up doing like one of 2 normal shenanigans, and that's sitting in a bubble using her totem's aura along with the Harada in order to set up the fact that you can't get plus flips. And therefore, every ranged attack against them is at negatives, and you'll never be better than more negatives. So that's a really good trick. But what Damien 2 just does if you do that bubble is he goes in there with built-in tomes, probably built-in crows, and you go in blasting with injured onto the whole entire crew. And that's pretty much what exactly happened. He went forward, he set up his bubble mid-crew, and I fasted Marco. I dropped 3 shockwaves onto him, so he had to take an obscene amount of TN duels, pretty much his whole crew twice, or 3 times, because I fasted him in order to do it. And then I went in with Damien after the fact, and because I'm at negatives, I'm at least, normally I'm not hitting severes or moderates, except for I just neg flipped it. So I go in there, I smack his guys around a couple times, I neg flip moderates, blast on the crew. At one point, I drew both the red and the black Joker from config, so going into turn 2 with a lot of decent damage on the crew, I cheat the red Joker for initiative. I think he even cheated his own 13, and I had 2 other Severes in hand. I think I had the 12 and 11 of Crows exactly. And he named his suit. The suit he named was Tome. So now that allows me to just whack Maxine with the Severes I have in hand. And that's just what I do. I whack her and the whole crew just instantly died. I wiped the whole crew turn 2 pretty much. And so we went and got a beer after that and I won the tournament. But if there are other Masters and Explorers you can play against Damien. Maxine, not one of them. Because even the other thing she does where she like spreads out giving conditions to her crew, Damien can also easily abuse that by pulling people out of position. So it's just a little fortunate of me, I guess, that Andre played so well, and also the fortune of me that the crew he decided to solo was one that I was very good against.
Yeah, I mean, and let's not take away the achievement, man. I mean, congratulations, man. I know that you practiced really hard for this. I saw you practicing every day the week coming up to this. I literally would see you when you would log in. So it takes practice to be good with stuff. It's not just floop the pig, win the thing, because you just named a whole lot of really good players that you had to beat to win this thing. So congratulations, man. I know you really worked hard for that.
It was very satisfying to win this tournament.
So a couple of questions that I have for you kind of as our outro, and then we will move on to Mr. Pope and his Scorpius Award. First thing I found very fascinating that you pointed out, which kind of brought back some old Magic the Gathering memories for me, is when you said a player is known for doing a particular thing, that then you can try to counterplay against that. We happen to be in a competitive Malifaux community where Andre Demings is probably one of the top players in not just the country, but also the world. So you see that guy at things like Nova and Gen Con and Adepticon. He's a familiar face, right? I know Sam has played him. I know Pope has played him a bunch. When you are known for a particular thing in Malifaux, do you ever find that you try to bob when people expect you to weave? And or have you ever just been like, nope, this is the thing I know, this is the thing I'm going to do? Because what I've observed as you as a player is that you will try to figure out kind of whatever the most broken, busted nonsense is, and then spend a lot of time and mental energy and effort to try to master it, right? You're not afraid of cracking your sword on an anvil and then reforging a new one. But like, if you're going to do it, you have to take a lot of time. What's your perspective on that situation, given that you yourself are a high level player and you run into a lot of other high level players with different methodologies? I think that's the biggest thing I wanted to ask you.
Yeah, I'm actually a big fan of the like get really good at one thing and keep playing as it. And I did that in M3E, and all that enabled me to do was at that point go, okay, I know the game really well. I'm going to start just playing whatever the most broken thing is because I have an understanding of the game. I think once you pick up like the fundamental of the game, I'm not a big fan of trying to stick to one thing. I agree with you. Pretty much, I try to find what I think is not only the most broken thing. I also do maintain that I like playing things that work for my play style in particular. It just so happens that my play style, which is drawing cards and catching people by being able to lure them in, tends to be really broken.
Yeah. I think you and I share a very similar perspective of hyper aggression with consistency from either card draw or some other value engine, right? Like, I like really proactive, aggressive strategies. And it seems that you also really are a big fan of that. Like, I thought the same thing when I was looking at the witness keyword, which was like, I'm going to play Unbound a whole hell of a lot because I like that play style, basically.
It's pretty much the reason I played Unbound over playing like Damien 1 is I like the play style of Unbound a lot more than Damien 1. And those can be considered like almost kind of equally broken.
Yeah, I guess time will tell once we see those other 5 keywords. But for now, seems like he's top of the roost. So, all right, cool. So, I mean, that's a wrap. You 5-0'd. You played a bunch of great players. You made some friends along the way. You made some enemies. You learned some lessons. It was a heartfelt time, all told. Anything else you want to say on as last words here, Mr. Haku?
High level marks. I let Landon convince me to play Karis against him while he was playing Lady J2, just because I agreed not to play Damien if he agreed not to play Hoff. and then he fucking Lady J2'd me. So this goddamn son of a bitch.
What a gentleman's game. All right, cool. Well, all right. So that's a wrap for Mr. Haku. Mr. Pope, you with us?
Yeah, I'm here.
All right. So I want to focus mainly on the Open for you because that was your Iron Scorpius win and was a really impressive performance with a whole lot of models I don't think you've ever played before. So that was quite an interesting feat. So I guess my first question for you is walk us through your decision to go after the Scorpius and literally just pick up Guild and play a bunch of masters you'd literally never touched going into day one of the Open. How did
Well,
that?
I don't want to exaggerate my inexperience with Guild. I had a whole 7 games of Guild in M3E. I played Perdita 1 a bunch, who I didn't touch at all this tournament. I played Dashel 2 like 2 times. And I played Sonya 1 exactly, or Sonya 2 exactly once. So, you know, I had some Guild experience, but yeah, the decision was mostly made on a whim once I heard that the prize for the Scorpius was equivalent to the first place prize of the Masters, roughly, as opposed to just winning the, Open. So the Scorpius was already something that was like catching my interest of like, oh, I lost the Masters, but I could still win the Scorpius. But more even so than that, I had already thought that the Masters was going to be the serious event and that I wanted to do something silly for the Open. So when I saw my good friend Nathan from our Swamp Fiends Discord say that he was willing to loan out his guild to anyone who wanted it for the weekend, I jumped on the opportunity, knowing that I wasn't asking you guys enough to bring enough models to Scorpius Thunders.
I could have bought enough models for Scorpius Thunders. That would have been
Yeah,
fine.
but I don't even think that Thunder's Scorpius well to begin with. So, this
Yeah,
and
it's
that.
probably true. Honestly, they got a couple of really, really, really bright shining stars, and then kind of not as bright shining stars. All right. So I mean, 5-round event. So walk us through round 1. Obviously, you declare guild. What's the pool? Who are you up against? And give us the high notes of the game.
Yeah, so one of the first things I did knowing that I was going to Scorpius Guild is I tried to, out of courtesy of to the person who has models that we're borrowing, map out what I was going to try and play in each round. So I'd already decided I had dog-eared Sonya 2 for this round, mostly because in like Carver Path, you got to chase down these markers. So I've got
Well,
a good idea.
give us the pool.
Sure.
So that the folks
It
at home
was
know.
Carver Path, Sabotage, Catch and Release, Hidden Martyrs, Public Demo, and Secret Meetup. So I had dog-eared Sonya for this round because in Carver Path, you kind of got to chase these wagons after you push them up the board. And I was hoping that between like Catch and Release, Martyrs, and like Public Demo, that having a master that shot at range and like had conditions to proc off Martyrs instead of having to just kill them outright was really going to help me clear out the board in such a way that I would be able to play a strong denial game. Given that Secret Meetup and Sabotage also require my opponent to somehow be on my half the board, and that I would just kind of get my wagons across the way as I needed to with some of my support units. So I played Seidel Sonya, I played a Witchling Thrall with Leadline Coat, Pale Rider, Guild Steward, Guild Mage, Spell Eater, and a Guild Lawyer. Just kind of like as my standard package for what I like to run in Sonya 2. You get a little reposition, you get some like good bodies, and I was playing into Leviticus 2, and I could tell it was kind of a bit of a new player because he bunched all of his stuff up against Sonya, and that was kind of like the start and end of the game on round 1 when I started blasting into his riders off of like I believe it was the Soul Battery, because that was the one without Hard to Wound. So I shot like a waif on one turn, Soul Battery on another. The Pale Rider never even got to take a defense duel before it died. It was a little mean.
But, it's basically the "so I started blasting" meme with Danny DeVito.
So I started blasting.
So I started blasting. Boom, 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 boom.
Yeah, it was exactly like that. The biggest like highlight for me though was actually just when the other opponent figured like, oh shit, I gotta get points with the models that I have left, and so the Guild Lawyer and the Dead Rider just kind of had like a can kicking match with the wagons. And so it was just funny seeing him stand toe to toe with a Dead Rider and not somehow get immediately murdered.
Yeah, you got cans to kick, bro. It's important. All right, cool. So do you remember the net score on that or the diff?
I believe it was, I scored full points on my schemes, and he scored 1 point for strategy. That
Okay.
sounds about right, because I got all 4 points of my wagons. I got both points of catch and release somehow. And then I believe I actually think I only got 1 point on martyrs, because no, I did get both points on martyrs because I tricked Rusty into killing my my guild mage. That was it. So yeah, that was an 8-1 round to start out the game. Start out
Okay.
the tournament.
So not a bad result. So
Oh, 7-1. I must have missed a martyrs point then.
liar, you dirty liar. Anyway, round 2. What we got in round 2?
Yeah, round 2, I ended up needing to play against my buddy Joel, who I
Joel's
play
the
with
man.
somewhat frequently, and yeah, Joel's great, and so I'm
And
just trying to figure out
amazing at
here.
karaoke. I wish
Oh,
I
yeah.
had gotten a video of him singing
A
karaoke
video
at
of that
our.
exists. It can be arranged.
We really need that. He killed that, and also is a good dude and fun to play with at Malifaux. So
Yeah.
shout out
So
to Joel.
I looked at the board we were playing on, and saw that most of it was just all centered around this massive cascade of hills, which we had called climbing or climbable blocking, just to because otherwise there'd be no terrain on the board, right? And so
Yeah.
seeing this glut of blocking terrain in guard the stash, I'll put out the rest of the pool: guard the stash, assassinate, in your face, spread them out, set the trap, breakthrough. I thought to myself, they don't make a better Lucius 2 pool than this. The terrain's perfect, the schemes seem good. Guard the stash asked for movement tricks, and boy, did the list I build have them. I played Lucius 2, had the scribe obviously, with Agent 46, Guild Lawyer, Klaus, Doppelganger, and my spicy pick, the Jury, my favorite out of keyword guild model.
The
so
Jury's
that
so good.
I had movement tricks on not only Lucius 2, but also the Jury, the Doppelganger, the Guild Lawyer, and Agent 46, all packing obeys.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I was able to kind of deny guard the stash with a mixture of that and murder. I ended up foolishly taking assassinate instead of spread them out, and halfway through the game, it was my relative inexperience with Lucius going, man, if I just picked spread them out, that was 2 free points, as opposed to me before the game thinking, well, killing Mayfang 2 is really good if you just lure her out of the bubble, which I was planning to do with Down the Wrong Path, since it also ignores concealment that he might get from like Vent Steam.
Yeah, so your game was Lucius 2 versus Mayfang 2,
2,
and
yes.
Joel was Arcanist player, right? He was
Correct,
declaring Arcanist.
yes.
Yeah.
I did score both points of in your faces. Lucius 2 just kind of waved hi to Sparks and then put him in the dirt. And then Agent 46 kind of spent most of the game walking into Joel's deployment zone.
And doing Agent 46 schemey things, one would assume.
Yeah, one of the other things that caught me off guard is I should have realized it when I was building my list, but Doppelganger is 8 stole stones, so Joel was able to score in your face off of it.
Ooh.
And I was just used to like M3E Doppelganger, who is 7 stones. So somewhere in my headspace, I was looking at that model. I'm going, yeah, it's a 7 stone model, and then kills it. I'm like, oh, this is not a 7 stone model.
The retro hipster Doppelganger used to be 7 points, no more.
But it was a really tight game with Joel and I. It basically came down to a lucky red joker on the last flip to change it from a tie to a win. So I think I got it. What was it, 5-4?
Well, let's ask the TO Maestro, Mr. Brandon. What does Longshanks say? 5-4. Thank you, Mr. Brandon. We appreciate it. All right, Mr. Landon. So now we're into round 3. You're 2-0, right?
Yep. And so in round 3, I end up playing into Nick Dub once again, the Nick Dub himself, as we had played in the or was this round 4? This was
Well,
yeah, this was Nick Dub. Yeah, it was the covert operations, set the trap, secret meetup, sabotage, leave your mark, vendetta. So this was the second game that I had played against Nick Dub, as we had played round 1 of the Masters.
And what did he declare and what did you declare?
I ended up declaring Dashel 2, which is funny because that's what he played into me during the Masters. And he ended up declaring Perdita 2, as apparently he was, I think, playing it the entire day. And so it kind of went like this. I on the first activation, kind of botched my deployment a bit because I was trying to figure out, it's hard to figure out where your opponent's going to put it from the Shadows model, but I knew Nino was the one I wanted to kill. And so once he put Nino down on the board, I went, okay, how do I redeploy my model such that I can, ride with me and then just shoot Nino twice to kill him, since I had the stones and the cards to do it. And so I'm measuring all this out, and I show my opponent exactly what I'm doing so that we all have the measurements right, after he had already shot with Nino on the first turn, just as a matter of fact. And then he doesn't have a way to save Nino, so I just go there and I shoot him. He's like, oh yeah, you can stone for crit. And I just thought that was the most hilarious thing. There's a really tight game even from there. Trying to remember the score. I know I got 2 on Vendetta, I got 2 for Covert, and I got 1 for Leave Your Mark. So it was 5 points for me, and yes, 3 points for him. So I believe he got 1 or 2 strap points. I think it was 1 strap point. And then he got the reveal on Leave Your Mark and the end point on Vendetta question mark.
Vendetta question mark?
I think it
Is
was
that different
Vendetta
than
on
normal
my
Vendetta?
my mounted guard with his Death Marshal recruiter.
All right, so yeah, let's do round 4.
So in round 4, I made myself the swindler. I was up against my buddy Haku once again in this tournament.
An additional Darkest Timeline.
A continuation thereof. And he had kind of said to me, I've been playing Damien all day yesterday. I don't really want to play Damien again. So can we just shake hands? You don't play Hoffman, I don't play Damien. And me sitting there thinking I was going to play Lady Justice 2 anyway, says, yeah, sure, that sounds great. And so he ends up,
sure, buddy, whatever you want. Shakes hand, grins.
and so he ends up declaring Karis 2 instead, and I'm like, yes, this is an excellent matchup for the Lady J2 I was always going to play. And then I make a terrible, terrible mistake in my deployment that almost turns it into a game. Where, well, let's talk about the pool. It's Cursed Objects, In Your Face, Hidden Martyrs, Public Demonstration, Vendetta, and Load 'em Up. I ended up taking Vendetta and Load 'em Up. Haku ends up taking In Your Face and something else that I can't seem to recall. Hidden Martyrs, I think. And we kind of just do this whole setup where I'm just boxed up with all of my models, forgetting that Karis 2 has blasts in this little corner that I'm planning to turtle in case he doesn't walk close enough. And then turn 2, he walks Carlos like 6 inches out of his deployment zone. And I'm like, that's it. He bought. Walked twice with Lady J2, bury Carlos behind a wall because, late line of sights for losers, and then just charge back to my deployment zone. And at that point in time, he follows in with Karis 2 later in the turn to try and, get some damage through before I, just do that to his entire crew. And he ends up putting like 3 of my models to half and 2 of my models to like 1 wound. I'm like, well, this is not great. But I had last activation from a cheated 13 for initiative, I think. No, never mind. I just outflipped him on initiative and I was holding my 13 to bury Karis. And yeah, so I bury Karis last activation after she goes in. She eats like 3 points of burning because she has no friends in the nothingness of the coffin void.
Damn, that's pretty judgy. Has no friends in the nothingness of the coffin void. How do you know she didn't make some new friends there?
Yeah, so then I end up winning turn 2 initiative as well. I go with a Death Marshal recruiter I have Vendetta on and kill Carlos, who is amusingly my Vendetta target, so that he heals a little bit so he's not so much in the danger zone that he once was in. And then Karis pops out to try and cause some more carnage, kills one of my Domadors that I had hired, and after that I just kill Karis in response. Longton at that point in time was willing to call the game. Unfortunately, Domador was not a large enough model for him to score his what do you call it, In Your Face, as he thought it was. So the score ends up being called 7-2 as I acquiesce. I most certainly would have murdered one of his Hidden Martyrs for the Cursed Objects point at some point in time during the game.
Okay, so it's 4th round. You're 4-0. You are now going into the 5th round, right?
Yeah, and at this
Uh,
point in time, I know I've got the Scorpius in the bag based on just talking to people. But, you know, it's not just Scorpius I need now. Now I need to flex and win the tournament with Scorpius.
Right, and there's one Bayou Gremlin crazed ES master left to defeat, and it turns out it is another Darkest Timeline because it is your friend and mine, Mr. Dr. Samuel Barros himself, which is really fun. I really like this one because it was one game that I got to fully watch. Two of my best buddies playing each other and on the final table. It was really cool. Sam and I tech a lot and like talk a lot about our faction because we share ES as a faction. And I've learned a lot from Sam in terms of being able to pilot specifically Max 2. So for this one, it was really cool because I got to see Pope run Hoffman 2, which is a master that I also own, and Sam run Max 2. So it was kind of a really interesting game for me. So Pope, why don't you walk us through the scheme and strat pool and kind of what your thoughts were leading up? Because you also took a kind of an interesting list with a whole bunch of interesting upgrades on it. And then give us the TLDR of the game.
Yeah, so we were playing Covert Ops, Spread Them Out, Leave Your Mark, Public Demo, Breakthrough, and Assassinate. I decided that I wanted to leave my dignity at home in favor of just flexing on people, so Hoffman 2 is what I had to do, even if I really had to play a busted master that I absolutely despise. It was Guild Hoff, though, so it was totally fine.
Sam's playing for the win too, and he's not just going to roll over on the final table. You know, he's going to bring whatever he thinks is the most busted nonsense as well. You know.
Yeah,
So.
and it was actually really great because this was another like rematch for Sam and I, as we had also played the final round of the Masters, where he.
Oh,
had,
we'll get to that. No spoilers.
Oh, sure. If we're gonna do something on that later, that's fine. But anyways, it was like a rematch for Sam, so it was somewhat humorous to me that we did it again at the last game of both tournaments. But anyways, I ended up taking what I thought was actually not too uncommon of a Hoff 2 crew, but the reason I take all these models is because I get a crash course over lunch from Haku after we had taken our lunch break an hour earlier than everyone else.
I'm just afraid that everything Haku was eating was covered in blue wet erase marker. You know, I'm just like, did he at least wash his hands before lunch? You know,
it 100% probably would have had some blue on it. And in fact, we reviewed later that we actually sang the wrong song at karaoke. Haku was supposed to sing "I'm blue,
I'm
blue,
blue, yabba dee yabba die." Dude, Haku killed it though, man. Yeah, thank you, Brittany. That was great. That was a good time.
But anyways, not to get too deep into karaoke.
Spice
instead of the game.
Girls, I think you'll find.
Don't worry, Brandon and I will talk lots about karaoke.
I was literally just about to be very offended that
Spice
he said
Girls.
Brittany instead of Spice
sorry,
Girls.
my bad.
We do not use Britney's name in vain in this house, Doug.
I love Britney Spears. She's great. What do you mean? She's fine.
Yes, but you're also just disparaging one of the greatest songs ever made.
I'm
by
just
the Spice
ignorant.
Girls.
I don't know. I just don't know what I'm talking about. I'm just ignorant. I'm not disparaging. I'm just ignorant.
I take for my Hoffman list Hoff 2, Toolkit, the Mech Attendant, who's free, the Peacekeeper with no prisoners, Melissa Core with Expert Marksman for that armor piercing on Beeb. Then I end up taking a Pale Rider with a lead-line coat, and I'm trying to remember if there was another model. A Guild Lawyer. Guild Lawyer was the last
Guild Lawyer
model.
as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Guild Lawyer just there, of course, mostly to just pick up my 13. And it turns out the first play of the game is cheating that 13 for initiative, telling Sam to go first, and then Sam having a brain fart just like I did, and forgetting that Jin can just make me flip more cards so I don't get the tools back up to 13. So he passes with his pass token from Jin, and then I just go with the lawyer, and I immediately snap up that 13 and go, "You fucked up."
Oh, I did.
Yeah. So that 13 ends up coming up a lot during the game.
Yeah, it was very much warping on what I could do. I really regret not doing that, but hey, that's the way you learn not to do it again.
So I end up practicing this kind of unpack that Haku kind of taught me about, like just kind of having those pylons up there. And I spent like probably 10, 15 minutes during deployment measuring out all of this nonsense because it was very stressful to get it all pre-planned. So Sam was very patient with me.
What is the high level of the logistics of that unpack? Can you walk us through that?
Yeah, so like I kind of made an L with my pylons leading up to the center with all this cover, and then just kind of walking through pushes with the mech attendant and the toolkit. You kind of load it up with power tokens on the things you want to push before they activate, and everything that you want to activate, before the push kind of doesn't get a power token. So it ends up, I think I put like a power token on core and a power token on the peacekeeper, and then I activate with the mech attendant, give the power token he had to Hoff, and then just push everybody. I failed to push once, and then I cheat the second one just to make sure it happens at least once. And then just kind of try and set up for what I want to do, trying to kind of angle core that I can eventually get into. Her target on the Beam Calypso is all the way on the other half of the freaking map. Pale Rider's just kind of chilling, doing nothing. And towards the end of turn 1, I follow the advice I'd been given to go like kamikaze Hoffman in to go dive out. What's Harada's name? Harada is Harada's name, of course. From the bubble that's stopping me
What's
from
that
taking
name
all
of
my
that
buff
model that I
flips.
just named?
So I kind of yeet Harada back towards my Peacekeeper towards the last activation of turn 1. And Sam, of course, just pulls him right back with max nonsense. But then Peacekeeper pulls him right back again afterwards to set up for some
Because I
good
didn't put him in the
omnomings.
Orville bubble.
For some good omnomings later. But and then from there I've got Hoffman in the middle of his entire crew, which was neither good nor bad, but was mostly bad because I forgot to put leadline coat on Hoffman. So he took a lot of pings from just
remember-
getting teared apart by Max.
I remember end of turn 1, I looked at the Hoffman card and I was like, did you forget Leadline Cloak? And then you looked at me and you were like, yes, I did.
Yeah. So I'll weigh in a second here. So basically, I really like this game. This is kind of an area where I was really feeling like a sort of a lack of practical experience over theory. Like I know a lot about what Hoffman does. I've talked a lot about what Hoffman does, but I don't. This was actually my first game ever playing into Hoffman, so that affected the way I picked schemes, and I was not expecting him to just dive my crew really aggressively. I really should have picked Assassinate. I just was expecting it to be too hard to score because he's got all that repairing ability, and he's got armor and shielded. He can hang back. But he threw himself in there, so I had to spend a ton of AP trying to take him down, and it just didn't quite work. There were multiple instances where he survived with 2 health left, which is incidentally the amount of damage it deals when you hit him and Massive Tentacles. And I know you've got Soul Stones, but it's nice to make you spend those things to prevent 1 damage. That feels real good. And the other thing is that I took Kia Manimi into this crew because I was like, oh, you're reducible damage, that'll be fun. But I had kind of forgotten like the secret knowledge, which is that Kia Manimi is just absolute garbage and should never be hired for any reason under any circumstances. So I felt I was flipping a lot of, spending a lot of 10 Soulstone model AP to inflict 2 damage on your master, which didn't feel awesome. But it was a really cool game. It was really cool to see what Hoffman can do. It's not just the death laser. He can also just charge in there and really do a lot of damage. And also the range on Melissa Core is absurd. I mean, if I'm gonna play Calypso, and it might just be correct to not even bother with Calypso into
He
you.
crongled Calypso
It's
from
better to
halfway
it
across
needs
the
to be
board.
it needs to be in cover. It just needs to basically hug
He
cover.
crongled it. He bamboozled it.
So what happened is like somewhere in turn 2, I see Calypso's just standing out in the middle of the board, and I go, all right, well, I wanted to use this power token to push Hoffman into more relative safety, but I push core 2, I walk core 5, I charge core another 5, and just take a focus shot from, what it originally started 24 inches away to just put Beeb or Calypso in the ground using I think a power token for the marksman trigger to hit the armor piercing.
Because you
which
had
is
armor
secret guild
piercing from the upgrade. Yeah.
Also, yeah, so I think that was a really cool game. I think I learned some important lessons there. I learned a really valuable lessons to try to not flip the Black Joker against Hoffman.
Just flip it better. It's a good strat.
Yeah, I mean, I due to my inexperience, I chose to flip the Black Joker against Hoffman twice.
Get good, noob.
Noob. It was a
the wild
really
part
it
was
a really
though,
good game.
if you just taken Assassinate, it was a tie game.
Yeah, well, now I know. Assassinate Hoffman. But it was a really good game, and Hoffman's really good. And I also thought it was really impressive that this was like your first Hoffman game ever, and you really ran the crew in a very professional way. So, well done.
Yeah, but Haku knows this nonsense inside and out, and
You
he
mean
could just
Landon?
phone
Yeah, to be fair, I had gotten some.
No, I'm saying you could
intense
phone a friend.
coaching from Haku right
He
before.
phoned a
Oh
friend.
yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah, so I don't know. It was a cool game, and I think you definitely earned that 5-0 at the Open. You Scorpiused it, and you did the thing. It was great. You got that big beautiful
Congratulations,
plaque.
Pope.
It
The
was
Pope
a
is the
much better result than I
Scorpius.
was expecting for something that I was doing for shits and giggles.
Yeah. Well, you did the right thing saving Justice and Hoffman for day 2. Once you got through the first 3 rounds with those 2 unpicked, I think you were in pretty good shape.
Like
Yeah.
the thing about Guild is that like every master they got from Burns, with the exception of like maybe literally none of them, is really good. The only thing that makes like some of them less good is that they're still stuck with their old crews. Like I'm trying to think, if I had to
Nope.
pick like a bad master in Guild, I don't really know that I can come up with one. Like Bass is the only one, and he's actually still pretty good.
Yeah, Bass is fine.
So
All
like,
right.
yeah, no, there wasn't one that I was like dreading to pick for Scorpius.
Yeah.
So that's the story of the Pope. Outside of anything else we talked about, do you have any other really high level kind of thoughts, either from the Open or from Masters? I assume that we will hear at least one Darkest Timeline story from Mr. Dr. Barrows over here momentarily, but anything else you want to tell the people before you sign off on your bit here, Mr. Pope?
Something that Haku didn't mention, I'm really salty because during our game with Damien 1, I looked at Damien 1's card and I'm like, oh, you get to give your guys shielded
Oh,
or
yeah, I heard
push
this.
them whenever you move or put a card in your config. And he's like, oh yeah, I do get to do that looking at his card. And then we played the entire game that any card you put in the config triggered that ability. And then the next day I go over to him. So like, so that game we just played, did we play this ability correctly?
Yeah,
And he's
after
like,
I told you, I told you that was
shit.
not how it worked.
Well, you had been mentioning me the entire weekend because I hadn't even realized this for a long time as you were going on. Like, so do you think Damon would be more balanced if he needed to put a severe in the config for any of his, abilities that require a 9+? I'm like, doesn't he only have the one with the injured? And you're like,
I will say I will defend myself a little bit. It almost since I always forgot it, it never really came up, and the few times it did come up, I really did actually put in on a 9 or higher. But yeah, it was pretty funny that
Haku's like, in my defense, Your
Landon
Honor.
put that on me.
In your defense, Your Honor, I was so incompetent that it rarely came up.
Yeah, pretty much.
You guys are such Muppets. All of you are Muppets. You're all Muppets. All right, cool. All right, Mr. Dr. Barrows. So you actually had a very good weekend as well. You got fifth and fourth.
And I was for the second event, Haku beat me by 1 diff.
Ooh, just a little diff. But you had some of the.
It wasn't 1 diff. It was 1 victory point.
It wasn't. It was second breaker. Same diff. 1 more point scored. Okay, so I'll just give the highlights. I'm not going to do the full 10 rounds. So I think I'm just going to pick out one game from each that I really liked. The first one in the Masters, my round 5 was against Landon, and the last time I'd played him before that was my Ma Tucket into his.
Well, hold on. What factions did you declare?
I played ES all weekend. I played exclusively Max 2 and Cadmus with one game where I played Cooper, which was really funny because Cooper Black Jokered his damage flips on 2 successive turns, and it didn't end up mattering because my opponent was playing Rasputina 2. So that was kind of a fun game. But it was mostly a Max 2 and Cadmus day. It was 3 Cadmus games in the Masters event, and then 2 Max games, and then 3 Max games and 1 Cadmus game in the Open. Because I really like Max. And she's just more fun to play. And I also was feeling good about Max because my Max crew won Best Painted in the Masters, which I was very proud of because I put a lot of time into those guys and their little flags.
And you have that dope ship that you 3D printed, and then you hand stenciled like the SS Candy or whatever it's called.
The Superior.
Yeah, sorry, the Superior. The SS
Sure,
Candy.
let's just say SS Candy. It's fine.
Yeah. That's the meme of the octopus breaking apart a cargo ship filled with candy, and he's very happy and eating it. So
yeah. So anyways, so that was fun. It was really nice, meeting all these people. I got to meet Jim Dyson in person. I played him online, but I hadn't met him in person. Shout out to Jim. He's a great guy.
Jim's the man, and he's a mod on Danger Planet. He's the nicest gentleman you'll ever meet on the internet.
So over the course of the weekend, I played 10 games. I was 7-1 into non-Landons and 0-2 into Landon. So that was a fun. That's a fun breakdown. So that's a
Gotta
little bit of
watch out for those
foreshadowing.
Landons, man. They'll get you.
We already talked about the Masters game we played. The last game of the Invitational was also me against Landon, and I played Max into Yoko too. And so I was basically playing your standard Max crew: Tidecaller, Harada, Orville, Beeb, Calypso, Max. I took Jin Bakara so he wouldn't get 2 last activations; he'd only get 1. And I took a Intrepid Emissary just because I knew the way his crew plays is that he stacks focus and feeds 13s to beaters, and then he last activates them, and I don't really have the ability to interact with that. But if I have the Emissary out, then I have the ability to kind of spread the damage he's going to do around and make it harder for him to one round a guy. So turn 1, he does his thing, he flips the pig, he puts out his focus. I stone for cards. I know I'm not going to be engaging him turn 1, and he's not fast enough to engage me turn 1. So I stone for cards, and I also calculate the possibilities on Max, and I have 2 13s in my hand, which is, the same as him, whatever, he's got 13s. But he goes with turn 2, he wins initiative. He spends his 13, crucially, to win initiative. And he goes with the Lone Samurai into Harada and basically does his you tonight thing and names Harada as his target. And he charges him, and he builds in crit strike, and he flips to hit, and I'm like, oh, I have a 13, and it misses. And at that point, turns out I thought he might have another 13 in his hand, but he didn't. That was the one that he used to get initiative. So he misses Harada. The second he knows he can't kill Harada with the Lone Samurai now, and Max can just heal him to full because of Calculate and all the other bullshit she does. So he attacks him again, and when that attack misses, doesn't even bother cheating it. So I activate Harada, put up his Haka, and cut the Lone Swordsman in half because he's already taken his 4 irreducible. So at this point, I'm up an 8 stone model to basically no loss. And from there, I send Calypso out to just kill Chio. I screw her up a little bit with Calypso because when I'm pulling him back, I don't realize the Kunoichi have no witnesses, so I don't treat the Kunoichi as a threat. And I position Calypso so the Kunoichi can just charge it and kill it with no witnesses, so it blows up Calypso. And then Beeb pops out, and because he wants to stop me getting cards, he charges Hinamatsu at Beeb. But now Hinamatsu's right in front of the crew, so Max goes in and just really tools on Hinamatsu, and I force him to spend a bunch of soul stones, and Hinamatsu lives at 2 health. He pulls Hinamatsu back with the Kunoichi on the next turn, and I just okay, Jin Bakara pops out of the Kunoichi, uses his armor-piercing blade, and cuts Hinamatsu's throat. So at this point, I've lost Beeb and Calypso, but I killed the Lone Samurai and Hinamatsu. Or I killed Lone Samurai and Jin Bakara. Or not Jin Bakara, what's his face? Lone Samurai and Hinamatsu. And I've just lost Beeb and Calypso, which is, I think, a really good trade in my favor. And I've also taken out Chio. And the Kunoichi's even damaged. And I've also got a really commanding position on the center of the board, which is really good for these guard the stash markers. So at that point, I decide I just blip Max over, kill the Kunoichi to deny him that line, then turtle up in the center and basically lock him out of the game. Just kidding. I ran Max. I did 3 walk actions with Max and a teleport to stunt and steal 1 strat point from him. And in response, he charges a Charm Warder in and beats her up, and then cheats the activation to get initiative on the next turn and kills her with Bill. And I'm like, oh, I just pop out next to your second Hidden Martyr, your Terracotta Warrior. And he's like, no, you don't. Charm Warders have an anti-demise aura.
No, you don't, sir. No,
which I had completely forgotten about. And
no,
so then
you don't,
I just
sir.
lose Max, and I just start feeling like ass.
You
So at
missed
this point,
my favorite part of that play, which is you stone
Yeah,
for
I spent my
cards
last
with your
stone for
last
cards.
stone
Yep.
on that
And-
turn, and
yeah.
then I
Yeah,
have
I
an
know.
11 for initiative,
And I
you
didn't
just
cheat at
don't
12.
cheat it.
I mean, did you have a 13 to win the cheat?
I don't even think I did.
Damn. Yeah. So I'm just basically the biggest idiot in the whole world. So I lose Max. It's fine. Everything's fine. At this point, I still have the Emissary, Harada, and the Tidecaller in the center of the board, and I have Jin Bakara and Orville in the back line. But at this point, he doesn't need to kill any more of my models to win the game because I've already given him a Martyr's point, and Yoko can guarantee the second Martyr's point because she gets the last activation. She can just push the Terracotta into me. He's going to get 2 strat points because I didn't kill the Kunoichi, and he has Assassinate. So I end up getting 3 strat points, nothing for Hidden Martyrs, and 1 on Secret Meetup. And he wins 5-4, and I just feel like total garbage. But it was a good game. It was a really close game. I told him later, and I will maintain I was in the driver's seat for that game, and I drove it off a cliff. And that's what happens sometimes.
Yeah, but I think another thing that we talked about, which is a big thing that I take away from going to an event like Nova, is you did get to test your mettle against a critical density of really skilled players.
And I think what this really illustrates about Malifaux specifically is that the game can look really bad, but what really loses you games is when your nerve cracks. And landing, credit to you, your nerve never cracks, no matter what happens in a game. You always have your eye on the prize. And I basically like cracked a little because I realized I was winning, and I was like, oh God. And I didn't start thinking about how might I lose the game. So that was a really good
Mandarin has
game.
a will of iron. Like
Yeah.
nothing ever ruffles his jimmies during a
Yeah.
game. He's
So
unruffable.
Now I'm
It's
actually I want to go on to my favorite game of the weekend, because this was a game against Andre Demings, who, as we all know, is a really, really good player. This was round 3 of the Open. And Andre's really good. As you said, he won tricks. And this time he was one tricking Seamus, who I think actually is really good in this GG because those hats are nuts. And we were also playing on a table with no concealing terrain and a bunch of blocking. So I was like, oh boy, Seamus. He's really good. And I remember when I started playing Malifaux again in 2021, I went to Gen Con 2021. I had been playing again for about 2 months, and I played in the Tyrant tournament. And round 3, I ran into Andre, and he crushed me, obviously, because he's incredibly good. And he was just a really great player and really gracious. And I remember thinking, like, wow, this guy's really good at Malifaux. Like, the ceiling on this game is really high. I better practice a lot. So, like, about a year after that happens, I run into Andre again. This is my first game against him since then, and I'm not even sure if he remembers me, but I remember him. So I'm playing Max 2. I have pretty much the exact same list I actually ran against Euland, and it was I used the Emissary again because Seamus is gone. And he's running Seamus. He's running Adoxy with Grave Spirit's Touch. He's running Nurse. He's running Carrion. He's running Bête Noire, who has the Whisper, and Seamus has the Whisper, and he has the White Rabbit Co. And so we're on flank deployment, so we're pretty close. So I'm looking at my cards, and I have 113 in my opening hand. And so I go, okay, I can bait him out a little. So I activate Harada. I do his Haka, so nobody can focus into him. I walk forward, and I walk out of Orville's bubble deliberately. And now Andre, I can see the wheels turning in his head, and he's like, this is the one chance I'm going to get to shoot at Harada, because he's going to be in the bubble. So he activates Seamus. He teleports Seamus forward. He shoots Harada. He cheats his 13. I cheat my 13. He's at double negative for damage, so he obviously flips weak, puts 4 damage on Harada, and dazes him. And now I can see him thinking he could try to charge Harada, but if he does, he won't be close enough to teleport back, and I still haven't activated basically anything else in my crew. That would just be throwing Seamus away, because at that point, I wouldn't even have to bonus action blip. I could just charge Harada, or I could just charge Seamus with my whole crew.
You'd be trading.
He'd be trading
Harada
possibly killing Harada, not even necessarily doing it, just maybe
Seamus.
doing it for Seamus.
Yeah.
So he blips Seamus back, and I unpack my crew forward. I calculate the possibilities and flip enough tomes to just heal Harada all the way up to full, and pull him into the bubble. And then, as for good measure, he has his little totem dude out a little bit too far, so I just blip Max over and kill the totem. So I feel pretty
His
good.
totem is actually very useful in a
Yeah.
Seamus crew. The ability that the copycat killer brings to the table of just the board flexibility for Seamus as a "I'm here now" button is kind of a big deal to remove early. I know whenever I play Seamus, you try to go after that little bastard aggressively
I
too.
do, yeah. So then turn 2, I win the initiative, and I immediately put up Harada's aura and put him in the bubble. So again, Seamus is not killing anything with the gun this turn. And he takes a shot at Calypso. He flips a weak. Calypso takes 2 damage. I heal it off. Like, this is how I know I have to play if I'm going to beat Seamus. I just need to never, ever give him a good shot. And I know eventually he's going to get one, but I figure if his good shot comes late turn 3 or turn 4, I'm okay with it. So he pops out Bête Noire. She does some damage. I force her to bury again by just smacking her with Max. And at this point, I'm just like pressuring the center of the board really, really hard and trying to keep him off of it. And so there's not much dies after that. At some point, he does end up killing Jin Bakura, because I pop Jin out to finish off the nurse. So he kills Jin. He actually red jokers the damage on Jin with the dead Doxy, and then kills it with Seamus. And I was like expecting him to take a little bit more AP than that, but it's fine. I expected him to die. But Beeb and Calypso basically just do a loop-de-loop around the house that I picked as my sabotage target and drop off 4 scheme markers on the 4 corners, so I can score the first point and then score the second point later on, not even have to worry about it. And I score leave your mark on the center. And what it comes down to in the end is there's this huge scrum with the Carrion Emissary and the Tidecaller and my Emissary and the White Rabbit Co. Just everyone fighting everyone in the middle of the board. And I end up saying, he ends up taking his last activation with Seamus to basically blip twice, interact twice. because he, it turns out, has sabotage and leave your mark. And he's doing all this stuff with measuring bases. And I'm like, listen, man, like this is the last turn of the game. Just what's your intent? Like, tell me what your intent is. We'll talk it out and we'll see if it's possible. And he tells me his intent is to get these 2 markers here. So he has 3 hats. So he wants to score the second half of leave your mark and he wants to score sabotage. And I'm like, yeah, you can do that. So he scores both halves of leave your mark. We just measure it out clearly. The space allows it. He scores both halves of leave your mark, 1 half of sabotage. I score 1 half of leave your mark and both halves of sabotage. He scores 2 on the strat. I score 3 on the strat because I just had way more command of the center of the board. And it ends up being a 6-5 game. And it just felt really good to go into that game with a plan. Deny Seamus's ability to just like blow somebody up and like take kills opportunistically. And just execute on that plan. And just Andre's a really, really good player. And he never like gave me an inch and he never messed up. And none of us had really like bullshit flips at any point. It was just a good, clean, honest game of Malifaux. And it felt really good to play that one. So that's kind of my high point of the weekend.
And, again, we'd said it already, but we know that guy is like a top player in the country. So like probably world.
So it was a great weekend, and I had fun winning, and I even had fun losing because Landon, it's fun to lose to you. You're a great player.
It's fun to lose to you.
I also had fun
for everyone.
I also had fun playing my first Lord Cooper game in the history of ever, and black jokering the damage flip on 2 successive turns, and being like, I don't know why anyone likes this guy.
Classic.
Ooh, rough.
I'm
gonna try a bunch of Lord Cooper one. Fold that into my ES strategy because, quite frankly, I don't want to have to think about running a Nexus 2 list for a bunch of rounds in a row at a tournament because that seems exhausting.
It is. All right, but that's my write-up, and I enjoyed it.
Do you have any? I mean, you and I kind of debrief often after days at tournaments, with little quips of wisdom or whatever, or takeaways. Also, congratulations, by the way, on your painting, Best Painted. I know that that's a big point of pride for you, and that your boyos, your little plastic gentlemen and gentle ladies, look awesome. So good job. I guess, do you have any like kind of core takeaways, not just from an individual tournament, but I mean, you did 4 days of 10 rounds of Malifaux and played against some of the best players in the country. Like, do you think you learned anything? Do you think you have any takeaways that would like any big highlights for you?
Yeah, I mean, steel sharpens steel. Like the only way to get better at this game is to play really good players. Like that's the way you got to do it. And it's really Malifaux is a really like gut-wrenching game to play sometimes. Like it's really scary. It's really thoughtful. You're gonna have to make a lot of decisions, and they're all gonna matter. So I get nervous before I play a big event, and it's just once you're in it, it feels better. You realize you can do it, and it's kind of like riding a bike. The only way to know you can ride with the training wheels off is take them off. So I would absolutely encourage anyone who's coming into the game who maybe doesn't have a ton of competitive experience, just go for it. Just swing the biggest bat you can, and you will learn something.
Yeah, I always tell people, even at our LGS, and Brandon tells people this all the time. It's like a tournament's not supposed to be like a perfect execution of a game plan. That's like not the only success criteria for entering a tournament. I think having a mindset of being like, I'm going to go and like play a bunch and I intend to learn every game. I might not win all my games and that's totally fine. But heck, if I'm not going to learn something every time and get a lot of games in, I think that's a great attitude. We had one of our locals, Han Chow, go to his first tournament and that dude really put it on the line. And he had probably only played like 3 or 4 games of Malifaux before that. And he played 3 games of Malifaux in a row. And that was a big deal.
Yeah. And he won his first one.
Yeah. Like that's awesome. That's
Shout out to Han Chow.
Yeah, that's like a big deal also. And like I think that's something that people should recognize as being another part of competitive gaming. Like you don't have to win to have fun. Like sometimes just being part of a cool community and having a good time is like in and of itself winning, And
on a related note, I just want to point out something that really stood out to me this event, head and shoulders, right? Like we have a great community that plays Malifaux. I traveled halfway across the country, didn't have to bring any models, thanks not only to you folks here on my team at the Danger Planet, but also Nathan from, someone who had only ever talked to me in the context of like one Vassal game and a Discord chat, right? Just let me borrow models for an entire event. And it's just like the community comes together and we just, no one's really super shitty to each other, right?
No, it's great. We have a good community.
Other games don't have that. And I feel like it's important that we, love and cherish this community for what it is.
Absolutely agreed.
We're all gremlins, but we all love one another. It's like the deepest Malifaux statement. So thank you, Dr. Mr. Barrows, Mr. Pope, Mr. Haku. Now, all right, I'm ready. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Are you sure?
No.
Oh, okay.
I need 35 minutes and a trench coat. You
That's
can't ask
fine.
questions.
And really, really, really big
Wait,
sunglasses.
how fast can you get the trench coat here? Also pants.
Yeah, well, I think pants are your responsibility, bud.
What about
Okay, all right. That's not
Spicy
not
intro
according
where
to the
we say that
contract I
Longton
signed.
played
Uh-uh.
all of the only good players there and won.
No. Sorry.
I didn't play against Brian. Although I don't know
I
with
played
his
against Brian.
with his reserve pool, do we count him as a good player anymore? Oh,
I played against Brian.
Whoa,
I played against Brian the only time in the entire 10 rounds that he played Von Stuck.
wow, that's
interesting.
an unfortunate one to pull into that one. Also, I didn't know he only played Stuck once the whole 10 rounds. Wow.
Yeah,
There
Stuck
was
is
a
like
guy-
his master.
Mr. Lane
Oh, yeah,
here
that's fair.
All right,
is about to start playing Rezzers. more,
Longton,
I think.
Longton, I'll give you 5 minutes later tonight to talk me out of Rezzers and into Arcanists. But
He actually has
me.
access to Arcanist and he has Witness. Like,
Witness me.
I think you should just play Witness, dude, and just witness people in the face until it's banned or whatever.
It
You
would
know?
be hard to convince me that Witness me isn't
good.
one of the
Unbound
smartest
is
things
so
to
good.
go play.
well, all right, we'll have questions later. But for now, let's finish this off. and
All
then we
right,
can-
all right. So, Mr. Brandon,
Hello.
you also part of Team Danger Planet, participated in four days in a row, 10 rounds. You played in the Masters, which you declared Neverborn,
Yes,
and
I
you played
did.
in the Open, which you declared Neverborn
Yes,
also.
I did.
So why don't you walk us through? I mean, you had 10 rounds. Why don't we walk through, like, your three favorite
I
games
have
that you
I
like?
have exactly 3 favorite games that I played.
Well,
I have
let's walk
exactly
through
3.
each one in order.
We totally can. Firstly, I would just like to say that I had a lot of great opponents, and each of them were as lovely and enthralling as the last. But I have, I think, so we'll go in order of how they happened. I think that probably seems very reasonable. So one of the most exciting things that I had in the first tournament was my round 2 opponent. Obviously, I played this guy on this new dude, his in round 1 of the Masters event. Ooh, shit, sorry. I played this guy on the first round of in the Masters event, but I can't remember his name. It was pretty unnoteworthy. No, just kidding. It was Longton. It was great. I did learn a lot in that game, particularly that 14.5 inches is just too close for Candy. I really need to enter outside of 15. Important lesson, man. Good Lord. I was so sad for my little lady. But immediately following up into round 2, I saw my opponent was just James in the tournament, and I was like, oh, I have no idea who this is. The Outcast player, I don't know anything about Outcast. It's going to be a weird game. Let's find out. And I get to the table and start talking, and we get set up, and it's about 15 minutes into the game that we finally open the app, and I see Diceman 87. I'm like, oh my god, it's Jim Dyson! And then hilarity ensued. I was very excited about this. So I finally got to meet Jim Dyson in person.
And the Dice Man tokens, right? Didn't he have custom etched
yes.
Dice Man tokens
Yes, he
that were
did.
just absolutely baller?
Yep, and I made sure we got him some of the Danger Planet swag we were handing out, and he was playing Zip 2, which is something that I had never played against before, and I think he ended up getting it. I think he got me by 2 points. I think it was a 6-4 game, but man, lovely opponent. Jim Dyson is absolutely 100% a fantastic dude, and I had a blast during my game. I was a little sad because of my previous round, but I was sort of trying to get back up on the horse, and Jim really helped, and he checked in with me every single time I saw him for the rest of the weekend. Literally, I can't say enough good things about this guy. I can't wait to see him again in person. Wonderful game. Zip 2 also, as it turns out, has legs. He did things,
He's a Sky Pirate, man. You never underestimate a Sky Pirate.
Yeah. No, you shouldn't. You really shouldn't. And this was what? This was round 2, so it was Carver Path, Catch and Release, Public Demonstration, Hidden Martyr, Set the Trap, and Sabotage. And I think, depending on at what point, I know that he took Public Demonstration and scored both points of it. And also Hidden Martyrs. I got both Hidden Martyrs, and then he got some Carver Path, and I didn't get so much. But yeah, no, I mean, it was a great game. I had another really great game that day as well, which my round 5 game which was also a master that I hadn't really had a lot of experience with, which was Sonia 2. I ended up playing against Nick Westbrook. And I had never met Nick before either. I had talked to him and sort of engaged with him a little bit online, and I think, actually, I don't remember if he was at Adepticon. Landon Longton, any idea?
Was Nick Westbrook at Adepticon?
No, he was not at Adepticon.
Okay,
he was one of the Texas folks who did not
He
come
was
up.
one of the few people that live in Texas that was not at Adepticon. But yeah, no, dude, Nick is also such an amazingly cool dude. Like we played a really, really close game. I think I ended up getting it by 1 point, going 5-4. He took a really competitive Sonia 2 crew. I kept forgetting Leadline Cloak, and he was like, "Hey man, just so you know, before you do this ability, this guy has Leadline Cloak. I don't want to get you caught out." And I was like, "Wow, dude, we don't have a lot of guild opponents back at home, and that's not an upgrade that I'm very familiar with." I know the premise of it, obviously, but it's just hard to keep so many things in track, especially after 5 rounds of Malifaux. Yeah, man, what a guy. Nick Westbrook, shout out to you. Also a great dude. I had a lovely game. I had a bunch of really cool opponents too in the master. Once we got to the open side of things, I think I ended the masters on 2-3, 2-1-2, 2-3. No, 2-3. But I did end up as best Neverborn. No. Okay.
That's awesome.
No, I did. Well, I don't know if that's awesome or if that's a stunning rebuke of Neverborn, but yeah, I'm gonna take it as good. Yeah, it's good. I think I ended in like 15th place overall. Yowzer.
Yeah, but you had fun.
No, I
Like,
had a great
you had a
time.
good
I had a great time. And I think the very next event that happened, because we had an event that night as well, on the Friday, which of course it was, I think, and maybe I'm going out on a limb here, but I think is probably one of the most important
legendary
events. One of the most important events at Nova the entire weekend
in the history of Washington D.C. Probably,
and maybe I think it might be the most fantastical and historical thing that had ever happened in that area.
In that general area,
which was of course the Friday Night Danger Planet karaoke, right?
It was amazing. It was so good.
I mean, I had a lot of great opponents. A bunch of them didn't even play Malifaux, which is wild. I guess we had some breakout Rammstein with Du Hast by Landon, which was quite frankly chilling to hear his rendition.
To behold.
It was amazing. What did Longton
did?
Longton of course did. Was it Wannabe or was it?
Wannabe.
It was Wannabe. Yeah,
Always
yeah.
Wannabe.
Yeah. Longton did Wannabe. It was just an amazing Spice Girls cover. Good.
And I got the shuffle down on that. That was a 4-4-1 beat, so you can just shuffle to that.
Yeah.
It's not that bad.
Joe did. What did Joe do? Joe did That's Amore, because Joe is the most Italian man that I've ever met in my life. I think I went to lunch with him every single day of the entire event, and I believe every single day he got the Italian Supreme from the Italian sandwich shop. It was.
What was the name of that pizza place that had the astronaut? That place was
Bazzelli's?
good,
You mean the place that had the giant POW MIA flag and all the police union patches, and also they sold $60 bottles of Veuve Clicquot and cigarettes behind the counter?
Are you sure?
I'm 100% sure of every single thing I just said. It was the most Italian place I've ever been to in my life.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it was aggressively Italian. But so Joe sung That's Amore, which was great. Good moon hit pizza pie thing there.
When the moon hits your eye, like
another great
pizza pie.
Exactly. Another very stunning turn of events, because I thought Joel was hesitant to do karaoke at first, but I think the line was just really.
Oh my god!
And then
Joel fucking destroyed it. Holy shit, was that guy good,
dude? He killed.
Yeah, that was
killed.
legendary. Pope says there's a clip of that. Pope says there's a clip of that I need to get my hands on so I can perpetrate nonsense with it.
Well,
but that was good.
We'll have to contact people and see how okay they are with the karaoke bits being posted. Maybe, but yeah. I mean, at the end
we'll have
the day,
Landon's people call Joel's people, and then have Landon's people call our people back. It'll be fine.
Right. Or I could just ping Joel. Like that's a
probably
thing too. But yeah. No, man. Oh, what a good and like it's so cool to see these people and really take the wargaming to a new setting, right? Like wargaming's great, Malifaux's a very serious game, but blowing off some steam at the end of the night is, I think, just as important. Sam killed Sam did. Did you open with the distance? Is that what he opened with? No. Oh fuck! What did Sam do?
He did this little jig dance.
He did the song that I still have no idea what it was that he had the amazing dance for. Maybe he'll come back in and tell us. But it was like a very strange country-ish.
It was like a Devil Went Down to Georgia jig.
It had some hard Devil Went Down to Georgia vibes to it.
Yeah, it certainly did. And then on Saturday, we played the dopest game of Root. Shout out to the Weird folks, we got to play some seven wonders with them as well, which was really fun.
And it was super awesome to meet Chris and Matt in person. Well, I met Matt in person a couple times, but it was awesome to meet Chris in person, especially after Sam and I interviewed them. Which if you haven't seen that video, guys, check it out. It's awesome. It's on the channel. We'll link it below, maybe. It was super cool to just hang out and play some non-weird games with the weird developers, right?
Those guys are really smart. You can tell they're just really smart people. You can just tell they're incredibly intelligent humans that make really cool games.
Yeah.
So it was really fun to be able to play like a game with them where they're just like a nerd too playing a game. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah. So. And this was fresh off the heels of their seminar that they did, I think, Friday night right before karaoke. I know Doug was doing some other stuff, but Sam and I got to sit in on it, and it was hosted by Craig Shipman.
Craig Shipman of Third Floor Wars.
So like shout out to Craig. There were so many awesome folks at this tournament. My God. But so Craig Shipman hosted an amazing bit about originally I guess it was intended to be about GG3, but then Weird announced a new book coming out, so there was a lot of focus on that, where he interviewed basically Chris and Matt for about an hour, and that was wonderful. It was such a cool event to sort of go to and get a perspective on the design of everything, and then it was all punctuated between some games of Malifaux. And I think I played a lot of awesome people. I met John Moser for the first time, who's another one of the one of the Texas guys. I think might be the world's foremost expert on Brewmaster. He thoroughly Brewmastered me. It was not great.
Is that the guy with the Brewmaster whiteboard scoreboard?
Yes, yeah.
That was way the best way I've ever seen to manage that. I've played against Dr. Samuel L. Barrows before, and he literally had 20 tokens that he had to have, like click tokens. And I was like, dude, there's got to be a better way.
Oh yeah, Sam had dials. Yeah, and even the dials aren't good enough. Yeah, it's wild.
In my defense, I assumed that owning 15 dials that each go to 15 would be enough. I was wrong.
You were wrong
for 6 models. No,
maybe you played 20s and still needed a second one for every model in our game.
Yeah, you need 3.
Wild.
You need a 3-digit counter for every model in your crew if you're going to play Brewmaster. So David was great. He was also my first opponent after karaoke, which meant that I showed up to that game and woke up still drunk. And then immediately had to play against Brewmaster on the most cluttered Carve a Path table I have ever seen in my life. It was wild. There were I was playing Zoraida. There were swamp people fighting gremlins. They were all as drunk as I was, nobody carved any paths at all. Yeah, I played.
You play Zoraida 1 or 2?
No, I played Zoraida 2 into Brewmaster 2, and I was roughly-ish, more or less sober by the end of the game, and I had no idea what happened. It was lovely, great time. But John was an excellent opponent. I also played John Goulborn for the first time. Shout out to John.
John's the man.
I've never been to a Malifaux event
Captain
that
Con.
John hasn't been to. Every single thing that I've ever done in anywhere outside of my local game store, John has been.
I hope we see him at Armacon.
Literally same here since M2E.
Yeah, we're gonna have to fly him out to our local game store sometime.
We should
I don't
do
know
an
how
interview
many
if he's
tournaments.
hopefully he'll be at Armacon. That'll be sick.
John, I believe John is going to be at Armacon. So for those who have not met the legend that is John Goulborn, he will be there. I ended up playing him on. He played. Who did he play? He played.
It was a Thunders player, so he must have played.
No, he played McCabe 1. And he had this super neat trick that he was doing with the relics and McCabe 1. McCabe 1 has an action that throws down a shockwave and makes everybody test willpower 13, I think, or they take 2 injured and 2 damage. And he was playing against my Titania 2 crew, which normally is one of the tankiest things in the game. The Autumn Knights with the upgrade are really, really hard to shift, but he took an out of keyword Kabuki warrior, ride with me'd it over, and then in a single turn handed out, I believe, 14 points of injured amongst my Hooded Rider and 2 Autumn Knights. And then they died. Yeah, no, it was wild. It was real good. That was very eye-opening. And then I would be remiss without saying, I also had a lovely time in my final round on Sunday, which was against Brian Bauer. I met Brian for the first time at Adepticon, and I was so excited that we got to play finally, because I know that he is a von Stuck connoisseur, who is somebody that I have recently picked up. And then he did me the courtesy of declaring von Stuck into me, and I learned a lot in that game, actually. He did some cool things, and because we played on the app, I have his list now.
Ooh, it will be yours now.
It will be mine. But no, I had a blast. I mean, coming from somebody who, quite frankly, was I think too busy to really get enough practice games to feel comfortable.
I was gonna say a big thing for you was just like you and I both don't really get to play as many games as we want. I didn't even get to play in either of these events because I had to work in the morning, every morning, and then I got to come down for the second half of the day and see what was going on. But damned if I'm going to ArmorCon. Hell or high water will stop me from registering a list and flipping cards at that convention.
Yeah, word on the street, Doug, is that you're playing the Crossroads 7. Is there any truth to that rumor?
I will, if I have my Crossroads 7 ready and painted, I will declare Crossroads 7 at ArmorCon.
Well,
you heard it here first.
We'll see about that. But yeah, no, I mean, it was a great event. I had a great time. I do remember prophesying my destruction at Haku's hands on Wednesday night when we were having dinner, and then lo and behold, round 1.
Yeah, you spoke the darkness into reality, and the Reaper showed up and just witnessed you right in your face.
Just like at Captain Con.
Having
lent him the witness crew that he destroyed me with. Yeah,
you painted the weapon of your own destruction.
I did such a
Isn't there an ironic poem about that? Wasn't there ironic poetry written about that?
I'm sure there's a lot of ironic poetry written about.
You won with me.
I won with you.
You were a part of the victory.
I own the Damien crew that just won all
your
crew. My physical Damien crew that I own and painted has won the most highest profile events that master has ever been involved in.
Brandon, I understand exactly how this feels. The only crew I've lost to in the last year of playing Malifaux is one that I built.
Amazing.
Get wrecked, Brandon.
Wait, what?
It's like when you guys were talking about the Haku Landon Darkest Timeline mirror match, where you were literally you had teched with each other, and then one of you used the tech to just crongle the other. That happened to me all the time in Magic tournaments because my team was like 6 people or so, and we would just test, right? And then like most of the time there'd be like 2 of us in the top 8 or something. And then we'd run into each other, and we knew what the tech was, so we would just be like, "Ha! Thanks for the spark notes on your own deck, jackass!" And then just like sideboard correctly into it, you know. It was like absolutely what happened. So it wasn't obviously I didn't call it out as being funny in the moment because like it's not that funny in the moment when you're living through it on one side of it. But now that we're on the other,
it was pretty funny actually.
Yeah. Now that both you fine gentlemen came away with a W in each event, so we can kind of laugh through it. Like I was kind of laughing to myself about that, if I'm being honest with you both. So, cool. So Brandon, if you had any major takeaways, any last words, I guess, before we move this thing.
Yeah, for sure. So, I guess maybe Doug feels similarly about this, but like Haku, Landon, and Sam have all been playing Malifaux for an enormously longer time than I have. I've been playing this game for just over a year, and they've all been playing since at least second ed, if not earlier in the case of Sam with first. But getting to talk to people that have been playing the game for so long, going to big events, getting to a position where you can play people who are better than you and learn from them is absolutely the best way to get better. And, you know, regardless of whether or not you're thinking about playing Malifaux or even anything, you know, it doesn't have to be Malifaux. It could be a card game. It could be anything. The absolute best thing that you can do is go to tournaments, meet the people who are really passionate about the game, and get involved in, you know, some sort of nonsense. Like, for instance, our Discord, you know, the Danger Planet Discord, where we have all kinds of people in all kinds of communities that are trying to get better at things and sort of work together and build communities in the way that the Malifaux community has become and is. And, you know, there's literally nothing better than getting to hang out for an entire 4-day weekend with all your buds, doing a bunch of fun nonsense and playing a bunch of fun games that are really, really mentally, you know, taxing and rewarding. Even if you don't win, you know, taking the small victories, learning what it is that you can do to be better from situation to situation. That's where it's at. And, you know, at the end of the day, I think I did the worst out of everybody here who played, but, like, you know, you guys all came in first and second and third and fourth. But I had a great time. And I would do it again. And you know,
And you will do it again.
And
probably.
I will
I
do
it again, and I
soon.
will. Just watch me.
I'm gonna.
I think what you said is really important for people to just understand, which is like going to a tournament sometimes is I'm gonna learn every game that I play. I may win, I may lose, but I'm gonna go into it with the attitude of I'm gonna walk away having learned something from the experience, even if it's just playing a keyword you've never seen before and walking away from that game understanding how that keyword works, for example. That's a huge deal for new players because especially I know I've only been playing this game for about a year as like my primary game that I've been focusing on. So like a lot of the times whenever I played a new master for the first time, I've now played I think every master in the game at least once or twice. But when I first saw them, it was a massive learning experience, and I would get crongled every time because I just wouldn't understand what the master did. I knew what it did on paper, and it was something that Sam touched on, where he's like, I know how this works from a game theory perspective or from a rules perspective, but knowing that and then seeing it operationally executed on the table is a whole different bushel of bananas, in my opinion, right? So I think that that's a big thing to take away, just getting games in on a system, no matter what the system is, whether or not it's Malifaux, whether or not it's 40K, Horus Heresy, Age of Sigmar, Kings of War, Infinity, whatever you're playing and you like doing, just getting repetitions of games in is a big deal.
Yeah.
So, yeah, cool. All right. Well, thank you, gentlemen. Quite the meeting of the council of the Danger Planet Avengers. So thank you very much for contributing here. I just wanted to say that it's awesome to be part of Danger Planet team and watch everybody do really well. I unfortunately had a lot of work that I had to do, and I had to work during the weekend because of what I do for my day job. But it was really cool to watch everybody on the team have a really positive experience and not just win things, but walk away with like really cool experiences and being able to experience the community at large. It was really nice to meet everybody too, even if I could only just be there for a little bit. Keep a tab on the channel, guys. We just finished filming our last tier list videos. But there's going to be plenty of other things that we're going to be doing, mainly with the Pope and Haku, is going to be basically keyword breakdowns, where we talk about all of the different models within a keyword, and then we break them out into a tier list in terms of always bring, should bring sometimes, edge case bring, and you really shouldn't bring. And our intention there is to give a zoomed in focus of really how to think about making lists within each keyword of the game. We're going to start out by each of us are going to submit our favorite keyword that we want to cover first, and we're going to let people vote on it in the community tab. And then from there, we're just going to do a rolling community vote list. And then whatever you guys tell us to do next, we'll break down as a keyword. But just remember, if you make Haku break down Gremlin stuff or Bayou stuff, he will throw a tantrum at all of us.
I didn't play one Bayou player this whole event. I'm so happy.
Well, you played plenty of Bayou players. They just you can take the Bayou out of the player, but not the player.
Out of the Bayou
because they're trapped there. The mud is very thick.
Yeah. So thanks everybody. Thanks Haku. Congratulations, my friend. Thanks Pope. Congratulations, Sam. You're always a winner in my eyes, man. You know I love you, buddy. And Brendan, I also love you so deeply from the cockles of my heart. And with that,
Aw.
thanks everybody. We'll catch you next time on the Danger Planet.
Peace.
Peace.